Hello, hi. So welcome to another Adalo tutorial. I hope you're doing alright. Today we're going to be learning about database. Database is the bedrock of every Adalo application. So if you do not design your database very well, you're definitely going to have problems in the future. You will not be able to scale the way you want to scale, and it's going to take a long time before you're done developing your application if you do not have the right database. So this is the normal dashboard you would get when you first start building a new app using Adalo. But the juice is when you click on the left part of your screen and scroll all the way to database. Click on database and you would see different structures. Adalo stores all its database on records called collections. So each of your collection comprises of records. Each of your collection comprises of lots of records. So each record comprises of fields. It could be number fields. It could be a Boolean fields. It could be a yes, no. So it really depends on what you want to do. But today we're going to be creating a database for an online instrument store. That's what we're going to be doing. So I've created a model here. So we're going to have instruments, and the instrument is going to have the first table is going to have the instrument category with the ID and category name. Then we're going to have the instrument itself. The instrument is going to have an ID, is going to have an instrument name, a manufacturer ID, a category ID, a description. Then we're going to have the country where each instrument is from. We're going to have the manufacturer table. Then when the customer makes an order, we're going to have all these fields like the ID, instrument ID, serial number, description, year of production. So we're going to have all these ID, all these fields when the customer makes an order. So we're going to have the order item, the customer's order, the customer. So we're going to have details about the customer also when the person makes an order. So just very similar to the way your typical online store works. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So first, let's start from the beginning. So the first thing we want to do is to create a collection called instrument category. So create a collection called an instrument category. So I just do a copy. Then I will go to my database and say add collections. So I want to say instrument category. That's the name of my collections. Then I would say add. So the first thing I want to do is so the first thing here is the category name, and the next is the ID. So I'm going to say category name. So I could do it like this. Name. So next I'm going to add my category ID, which is a number. So you see it's a number. So I'm going to add my category ID. So now we're done with that. So next, so you can keep on adding properties. You can keep on adding a lot of properties. Keep on adding properties if you want to, but we're done with that. So we're just following what's on this model. Next, we want to add the instrument. So the instrument is going to have the ID, instrument name, manufacturer ID, category ID, and the description. So that's what we're going to have. So let me minimize this a bit. Increase it a little bit. So I want to create a new collection called instrument. Instrument. That's the name of this collection now. Instrument. And I would say add. So remember, we're going to have the first thing we're going to have here is the ID, but let's just go with the name first. So we're going to have instrument underscore name. So next we're going to have the instrument ID underscore ID. So putting an underscore is not the only way to name it. You can name it together you can name both of them together and say ID like this, or you could put an underscore like this. It depends on what you like. So there are various naming conventions that you can use. So I just like doing it this way because it's a bit distant. But you can do it the way you want to. So next, we're going to put a manufacturer's ID. We're going to put a manufacturer's ID. That's the next. ID, it's for number. So we're going to say manufacturer ID as the next. So after that, we have the category ID and the description. So we then have another number. Then we have the category ID. So we have the category ID. Then we then have a text, which is the description. So this is it for this collection. So we're done with the instrument collection, and you see they all have 0 records. But as we start adding records to it, it keeps on populating and keeps on populating. We're just using the free version of Adalo. So when you're paid, it's similar when you're paid, just that there are some features that you'll not be able to use until you get to the paid version. So the good thing is that from on the 19th, Adalo started this trial, so you can integrate. You can see how to integrate with other external database for free. You can try that out for 14 days and see what you think about it. So let's just go on. We're going to create another collection called country. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to add a collection. I'm going to call this country. I'll say add. So we'll just have the country name. So that's the first. Then we'll have the number, country ID. So we did the country name and the country ID. So next we're going to add the manufacturer's detail. So we have the manufacturer's name. So we add another collection and add manufacturer. Hope we've not done this before. Okay, we've not. So we have the manufacturer. So we're going to add the name. So that's the name. So we're going to say manufacturer's name. So it's good you name your records very, very well so you don't get confused. So we're going to add the manufacturer's ID. Manufacturer ID. What's the next thing again? It's country ID. So the country where the manufacturer is from. So we're going to say test. We're going to add the number. So we're going to say country ID. So this is the country where the manufacturer is from. So now we're done with that. We'll go all the way to the customer's order. So we need a record. We need a collection to track the customer's order. So we're going to add a collection and we'll call this a customer. Is it a customer order, right? Yeah. Okay. We'll call it item. So we don't call it customer order. So we just call it item. So there's the item the customer wants to buy. So we call it item. The first thing on the list is the ID. We're going to have the item ID, the instrument ID, the serial number, description, year of production, and country ID. So we're going to have the first one, we're going to have the item name. I guess this is in the record, right? Item name. I hope it's there. Forgive me, I just need to check very well. So we don't have the item name, but just have the ID. So there's no name. So instead of the name, I think we just add description here. So we just add description. So we just have item description. So we just have the item description. Then we have the date. So we have the manufacturer. Is it manufacturer date? Oh my God, what am I even doing? So we have the, oh my God, no, year of production. That's what we have. Year of production. Oh my God. So we have year of production. That's what we have. Year of production. So we're going to say save. Then we also have the country ID, which is a number. Country ID, which is a number. Then what else do we have again? We have the instrument number. We have the instrument ID, serial number. So we're going to add the instrument ID. So we also have the item ID. So we also have the item ID. Then lastly, what else do we have again? We also have the serial number. So your database is going to be quite different from mine, but lots of e-commerce database are going to be quite similar to this. So it really depends on the data you want to capture. So that's what's going to form the basics of your database. So next, we're going to go to the order item. So for the order item, we have the customer ID, item ID, and we have the order ID. So that's quite straightforward. So we're going to be like order item. So for the order item, we're going to have item ID. So we can't really, the thing about Adalo is that the first item is always locked. It's always the name. So we can't do anything about this. So we're just going to call it the item ID, because the test can take both test and test can contain both test and number. So it's not strictly number. So I'm going to call it item ID. Then I'm going to give create another record and say country ID. So I think the next is going to be the manufacturer's ID, right? Okay. Then we have the ID itself. So test. So we have the order ID. So the reason for all this ID is just for you to be able to track everything that's happening on your database. So we then have the customer order. We have the customer order, we have the customer ID, order item, delivery time. So let's create another collection called the customer order. So we'll have the first one, we'll have the item name. I think that's what we'll put first. Wow, delivery address. So we have like a lot of time stamp on this one. So I just start with the first test property called delivery address. So we have the order time, we have the discount. I think this is the number also. So we have the discount property. So I'm just doing it so I don't have to go back to the form all the time. We have the discount property, we have the total price and the final price. So number, we have the total price. So we also have the final price. We have the final price. Then also we have the delivery address and the delivery time. So we have the delivery time, we have the order time. So let's go for date and time. I think there's nothing else again. Let's go for date and time. So we also have the date and time. So we say order time. So we have also the delivery time. We also have the delivery time. Then we have the order ID. We have I think we have the customer ID. Yeah. Yeah, we also have the customer ID. I think that's the only thing we have left. We also have which is a number. So we have the customer ID. So we have I think we're done. So let's compare it together. We have the customer ID, we have the order time, we have the delivery time, delivery address, we have the preferred delivery time. Okay, we don't have that. So we have the preferred delivery time. So this is the time where the customer want to receive the goods. So you don't want to bump on the customer every time. You just want to say, hey, I want to get those goods at this time of the day. So this is the preferred delivery time. So this is where it is, preferred delivery time. Then lastly, we'll go into the customer section of the database. So the customer part of the database, so we'll add another collection. So we'll say this is the collection that will contain the details of the customer. So I'm going to say customer detail. So this is what will contain the details of the customer. So first we have the customer ID, customer name, username, password, confirmation code, confirmation time, and country discount. But we do not really have to create this one. Adalo already have a database for us already. We just have to add our own fee to it. So we can just, delete this collection. So I'm going to say customer details. So delete this collection here. Then I will go ahead and it already have the, you can see we have the email, we have the password, we have the username, we have the full name. The only thing we do not have the confirmation code and the confirmation time. So we're not going to focus on this right now. Confirmation code, confirmation time. We're not going to focus on this, but we just add it for record's sake. So I'm going to do customer ID, customer ID. So I'm going to do delivery code. Code can be name, can be words, it can be text and number. So I'm going to say confirmation code. Then I'm going to say next. I'm going to say confirmation code. After confirmation code, what's next? There is confirmation time. So this is not test. This is supposed to be date. Confirmation time. So it's supposed to be date. Confirmation. So the reason why we add in the confirmation code and confirmation time, it's most of the time when you're developing an application, you want to send your user an SMS to make sure that they are who they really say they are. So now we've been able to create all these records: the user, the instrument category, the instrument, the country, the manufacturer, the order item, and the customer order. So one good thing about Adalo is that Adalo has lots of relationships. It has something called relationship. You can easily create relationship between different tables, between different collections. You can easily create different relationships. So you can see that a manufacturer can belong to one country. So we can start creating relationship among all of them, so that each record will be accessible from where it's needed. So a manufacturer will belong to, we will have lots of manufacturers in one country, and one country will belong to lots of manufacturers. So say you live in the US, you can have 100 manufacturers in the US. See? So that means we have to create a relationship between the manufacturer and the country. So we'll go down, click on manufacturer and say add property and say relationship. Choose the detail you want to have relationship with. So I want to have relationship with the country. So I'm going to have a lot of relationship. So I want to have relationship with the country. So I will click on it. I would say You see the instruction. A country can have multiple manufacturers. A manufacturer belongs to one country. A country can only have one manufacturer. A manufacturer can have multiple countries. A manufacturer can have multiple countries. A country can have one manufacturer. So we'll click on the first one. A country can have multiple manufacturers. A manufacturer belongs to one country. So I'm going to say done. So when you go down, you would see that we have a relationship now. So we could just call it country ID 2. So this is the country ID, this country ID. Let's just go ahead and delete the first one. So this doesn't matter anymore. So because we have access to the entire country database. So most of the IDs that we created before, we're going to be deleting them because we then have access to all of them. So let's create another relationship between the manufacturer and the instrument. So you can see we have different, or let's create a relationship between the instrument category and the instrument. So we can see we have different, the instrument name, instrument ID, category ID. So this is what we want to create. We want to create a relationship between, so we're definitely going to take this out. So I'm going to say create a relationship. Add properties, I'm going to say relationship with the instrument. An instrument can have multiple categories. A category belongs to one instrument. An instrument can only have one instrument category. An instrument category can have multiple instruments. So this is what we want to look at for this one. An instrument can have one instrument category. An instrument category can have multiple instruments. So this is what we want. So we will call this the instrument ID. So when you go to the instrument, you would see you have something now, instrument category. So you can easily select the category that you want each of these instruments to fall into. So now let's go. When I have a relationship between the manufacturer and the instrument. Like one manufacturer can have multiple instruments, but an instrument will belong to one manufacturer. So I want to create a relationship between these two. So you see the first one, it says, pardon me. So I'm not creating a relationship between both of them. So I'm going to say add, I'm going to say relationship. I'm going to say create a relationship with the instrument. So an instrument can have multiple manufacturers. A manufacturer belongs to one instrument. This is what we want to go for. An instrument can have multiple manufacturers. A manufacturer belongs to one instrument. So I'm going to click this. So this is what we're going to, this is what it is. So I'm going to say instrument ID. So this is where we are now. So the other ones, we're just going to populate it. So we're not going to create a relationship with any of them. The customer ID, the other item. We're not going to create a relationship with lots of them, but we're just going to populate it. But as time goes on, if there's any other thing you want, if there are any other relationship you want to create, you can go ahead and definitely create it. So as time goes on, you would work on your database more. There might be some things that you want to do more. But as time goes on, you definitely want to maybe add, create some new relationship, and just do more. But that's the basic way to create a database. That's the basic way to create a relationship amongst database in Adalo. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have questions, leave it on the comment section, and I'll do well to answer you. Thank you.